Okay.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Empowered. I am Luis Carlos Estrada, and today I have a very special guest from ESPN, Patricia Yanez. Welcome to Empowered. How are you doing today?
Hola. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing well.
Well, for those people who don't know you, I want to give a little bit about an introduction. Many people probably don't know you, but many people know your work for sure. You have been involved in The Last Dance,
No.
Michael Jordan, Captain, about Derek Jeter. I haven't watched that series yet because for some reason I haven't been able to find
Oh, come
it.
on, Luis.
He's my favorite player. Like, I'm gonna send you pictures of my room later. It's fully about Derek Jeter. So first of all, I would like to know, like, how did your
It's been
journey?
a year. The film's been out for a year.
I know. So first of all, before you joined ESPN, you were at Disney. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience in Disney and what was your role there?
Yes. Yeah. So some people know, but for those who do not, Disney owns a majority of ESPN. So you can think of it as a multifamily home that has different apartments in it. And so, Disney owns other properties like Pixar and Lucasfilms, and ESPN is one of those properties.
Mhm.
Um, so I did initially start in a group that was called Disney and ESPN Media Networks. It's now evolved to have a few different names. But essentially, that work, I had a few different rotations in that department. First, it started in sales. I moved into different flavors of marketing. And then most recently, I moved into ESPN where I was doing consumer marketing on films, as you mentioned.
Okay. What would you say that has been or it was your biggest success with Disney when you were working for them?
When I was working on the Disney side, I mean, I did a lot of cool things. So, as I said, I started in sales. I moved into a client services marketing role, which I'd like to think of as like a mini tiny agency within the sales and marketing organization that was distributing and licensing the television networks. And that was a really cool role because we just did
Mhm.
super creative stuff. So we'd come up with all these concepts for how to create immersive VIP experiences for clients to help, sell and promote the value of the Walt Disney Company's television portfolio. And then on the other hand, we would also create custom mailers that would reinforce the value of our portfolio or celebrate a network launch with a partner. Actually, hold on a second. I actually have one of them here.
Okay.
Um, we did these cool frames, show and tell. So we did this when we launched Disney Junior a
Okay.
few a few years ago. Um, so anyhow, that was a cool job because we just were constantly creative, constantly coming up with new concepts and new ways to kind of position the content. And
Mhm.
from there, I moved into a role that was more focused on client management. And that was just really cool because I was able to, work with Amazon, Microsoft, Comcast, and really think about how do we create mutually beneficial partnerships to advance both of our business goals around cool content that we were launching, around editorial calendars that they were launching, around app downloads on their platform. So that was creative in a different way. But I'll say overall at the Walt Disney Company and ESPN, I was really able to navigate through the company. So, once I was started in sales and I got to meet with pretty much anyone I wanted to, I was able to explore and figure out what challenge I wanted to take on next.
Mhm. Moving now to your ESPN career that you also started like probably like 3 4 years ago. We were talking about a cap time
Yes.
before. So if you can tell me about your involvement
Yes.
in that documentary of Derek Jeter.
Yes. So I am one person of a much larger team who was responsible for promoting and marketing the film. We worked with a great director and his team, Randy Wilkins, to really think about, what were the ways in which that we could tease out different storylines, address challenges and perceptions around the film,
Mhm.
and think about how to break through in the summertime where a lot of people, are focused on doing other things other than watching 7 hours of a documentary.
And what would you say that were your biggest contributions? So that has been a success?
Yeah, so our team was largely responsible for the overall traditional marketing of the film. So if you think about trailers, week to week commercials you would see on TV, the poster you see behind us was actually led by a really talented team at ESPN. Um, Eric Paul and Karen Frank, I believe, were the leads on that project. And so we work all together
Mhm.
to figure out, you know, creatively, what are the things we want to say with a poster, right? His facial expression, his fashion, where he's posed, all of those elements matter. Even the font, the title itself of the film. We're making these really intentional choices along the way to communicate something to who's going to see it. The same thing goes with the trailer. So if you remember, this is a 7-part film.
Mhm.
Um, it was released week over week on different platforms. It was a television premiere and then a direct to consumer streaming availability on ESPN Plus afterwards. So we had to really think, what are the times where we're driving audience to the television? What are the times we're driving to our direct to consumer product and hopefully either getting new subscribers or driving engagement? And
Mhm.
so, my role in working in partnership with all these other teams is really to think about how do we effectively communicate these things while addressing, all the challenges that are going to be all the storylines that are going to come through the film, the challenges, challenging the assumptions that people are going to have about what we're not going to talk about in the film, and making it beautiful and impactful. Because functionally you can do these things, right? But we also want it to be a beautiful piece of art.
Yeah, my next questions are more about the marketing side of this because I just graduated with a marketing degree
Yeah.
from NYU in December, and
Ah, how
literally
easy that is.
thank you. And literally 4 days ago, I just started my MBA program here as well. So it's kind of like I'm trying to, and that's the reason why I wanted to
Okay.
interview you, not only me as a learner, but also like to have like more exposure to the business world. ESPN, I love that company, and I'm going to tell you more about it later. But I want to know
Yes.
more about the marketing side of this. When it comes
Yes.
to measuring the success, how did you measure the success
Mhm.
of the captain in this case?
Multiple ways is the short answer. So the longer answer is, it depends on what the creative in that moment was set up to do, how we designed it to achieve. So in some ways, we were pulling down some levers to drive linear viewership. Linear is basically, traditional TV when you like turn on the channel and you watch it live or even on demand.
Mhm.
We had a separate set of goals that were aimed at driving new subscribers and
Mhm.
also retaining subscribers on our direct to consumer platform known as ESPN Plus. Very different creative executions for those, very different calls to action, very different media weight that you would use to unlock some of those goals. And so while it's all related to the film, we did have to think about these two business lines that we're looking to support and how we're not cannibalizing one over the other. And not confusing the customer or the fan at that point, about where to find it and how to watch.
Would you say that it's harder to retain customers or to gain new customers?
Well, it's more expensive to get new customers.
Yeah.
It's a lot more expensive. I would say, I don't know if it's easier. I would say it's probably best for businesses to focus on exceptional customer service and customer fan experience to retain customers than it is to spend money and putting new customers in the funnel. Not that you shouldn't do both, but if I had to pick one, I would pick it on phenomenal fan experience with my product to retain customers.
Yeah, uh-huh. Recently, I started to watch Shark Tank again. I used to be a Shark Tank fan, like since probably like 3 years ago, but I
Mm,
started watching Shark Tank again this week because
yeah, on ABC.
they're like a new series. And one of the questions that a shark always asks is like about acquiring new customers. How much does that cost? In your case, how do you measure the acquisition cost
Mm,
per customer?
yes.
I think I lost you for a
There is always an acquisition cost. We also look at in the television world, oh no, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you now. Yeah, yeah. I think it was a connection problem. We're
I
back.
think you're frozen. Okay, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. So the cost is all the things that you put money into to try to get someone to sign up. So, as you know, since you just graduated in marketing, it's not that someone sees an ad and all of a sudden they're like, boom, I'm going to buy this thing, hopefully. But oftentimes it takes some frequency, right? It takes a few impressions. You want to be top of mind as a brand when someone's ready to make that purchase. So it takes like, these larger funnel ideas, in television and radio down to, as you pull someone down through the funnel into like a clickable or digital asset to actually get them to make the purchase or complete the transaction. So attribution is always tough. But the cost of doing all that stuff is pretty significant, right? You're looking at billboards, you're looking at television ads, and not just the actual media that you're buying, but the production of that and the creative elements around that. So it can get quite expensive. Um, so I think the goal is really around getting healthy subscribers or healthy customers, meaning in TV world, you have some people that might sign up for a free trial or sign up to see a particular show. And then we say churn out, meaning they cancel right away. So like if you sign up for a week and you're like, I'm just going to binge Insecure on Netflix for a week, and then canceled, it's not a healthy customer for you, right? You want to be able to show that customer that you have additional things to offer them that they would also like. Netflix does a great job with this, with the recommendation engine and kind of surfacing like the top streaming content that you might be interested in. And so that is the way to keep the healthy subscriber. If you have someone who's coming in to watch like a pay-per-view fight, signs up, watches the fight on Saturday, cancels, maybe, yeah, you got the pay-per-view money, but ideally you'd keep them in for the next fight and you're kind of queuing that up for them next.
Yeah. Going back to the cap sign, there was
Mm-hmm.
an ad or a poster close to Fenway Park, right?
Yes.
How did that
Yes.
idea came up?
Yes. That yeah, the Fenway billboard. Yes, there was quite a lot of media coverage for that. That was from our team. It was actually the idea of my VP Seth Ader at the time. We were talking about the off-channel media plan, and we had definitely wanted to double down in New York. Although, the Yankees, surprisingly at the time, our research team had informed us was the number 2 most popular team in the US, second only to the Lakers. And I mean like second most popular team across sports. Like, so we were like, okay, people love the Yankees. We want to go hard in New York. New York's number 1 market. We had done some out of home bus shelters. We had done some, of course, by Yankee Stadium at 161st Street. And, he asked a bold question in the room. And he's like, what if we did one in Boston? And so our media team went right to work to find a placement that was close to Fenway. We found an ideal placement. We honestly only had that placement, if I remember correctly, for about 3 days.
Uh-huh.
And in those 3 days, we lit a match. Kudos also to Randy Wilkins, who had a friend of his in Boston take a picture of the billboard for him so he could tweet it. And so all of that kind of started to fuel the fire of conversation around the film. I think in a way that was really authentic to how fans are with each other. If you've ever had like a fantasy football league or like anyone in a room like talking sports, there's always rivalries, right? There's rivalries for your alma mater. There's rivalries like everywhere we go. So as long as it's like playful and not mean,
Uh-huh.
it kind of, there was like a lot of respect around, the billboard placement and the fact that Jeter was showing up there with his grin. And we even discussed and debated that, should it be his serious pose that you see in this poster here? Should it be like his smiling off to the side image? What would that signal and what would that send to fans? Should it be the artwork or something entirely different? All of that was thoroughly discussed amongst the team. And then, of course, we had to discuss, well, what if it becomes defaced? Like, what are
Uh-huh.
we prepared to do? And are we okay with that? And we decided that it was a calculated risk and that we were okay with it. And then ultimately, it might provide even more coverage while we got it replaced.
Hmm.
So we went with it and we were bold.
That's true. Did you ever got to meet Derek Jeter at some point?
I did. At some point, we had a few screenings of the film as we got closer to the premiere, and I was able to meet him briefly.
That's crazy. That's my dream. And
He is every bit a gentleman and a class act. He and his entire team, I should say, that we worked with were phenomenal to work with. So sometimes they say like don't meet your heroes. I wouldn't say that applies to Derek Jeter.
wow. Patricia, I really appreciate your time and like all this
Of
marketing.
course.
And something that I always do with my guests at the end of the episode is like, so I already asked you a lot of questions. Some of them were kind of hard, but
Yeah.
very easy for you. So now you ask me one questions about anything, but if a previous guest already asked me that
Oh my
question, you
gosh.
gotta choose another one, a new one. So be original in this one.
Okay. Admittedly, I have not seen all of your podcasts, so I may pick one that somebody's already asked you. Um, hmm.
Can be about baseball, anything.
Well, I'll ask you this question. You're Colombian, right?
I'm Mexican.
Mexican. Oh, why did I think Colombian? I'm mixing you up with someone I spoke with earlier today. Sorry about that.
It's fine.
What is um what is like your favorite food from back home?
I would say chimichangas. That's my favorite one.
Tell me why. Because I love to cook, so this is why I'm asking about food. And I know
Okay.
Mexican food in the US is not Mexican food in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
So I want to know like a real chimichanga. Like what happens here? Why is this so magical for you?
I probably just the ingredients. I would say that their taste better. I don't know why, but I don't know. It has been my favorite food since I have been since I have been probably like 5, 6 years old. I don't know, but I really like it. So it's that one. And the other thing is that asked you
Okay.
my previous guest, he asked you a question, and now you will need to ask a question to my next guest. But first, I'm gonna tell you the question that he asked you. He worked for ESPN.
Oh,
You might know him. He's
okay.
Ernesto Jerez. You know him?
Who is it?
Ernesto Jerez.
No, I
He's
don't.
the he's the
Mm-mm.
broadcaster for ESPN in Spanish. He's the one that say no 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 no. You know that one? I'll
Oh,
say
on Deportes.
ESPN Deportes. Uh-huh.
Got it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so he's asking you, what has been the
Yep.
hardest part
Okay.
of coordinating films, such as The Captain or The Last Dance?
Coordinating films?
Yeah, what has been the hardest part of
I
coordinating?
would say, because we have two lines of business, right? We do live sport broadcasting and we also have original content.
Mhm.
We are looking at ways to optimize the premiere of that original content within the live sport calendar, right? And sometimes we have the rights to those sporting events, sometimes we don't, sometimes on other networks. And so, unlike other streamers like a Netflix or a Hulu, because we want to start on linear and then move to um, streaming, we sometimes have to be a little bit more flexible with premieres. And so streaming, premiere dates can change as, sporting calendars change that are not within our control, like MLB releases a schedule or there's an injury or there's a game cancellation, there's a rain out, there's things that we don't control.
Mhm.
Home run derby is supposed to go like 2 hours and it goes like 3 hours,
Mhm.
so those kinds of things kind of keep you on your toes. And in a way that I don't think our counterparts on the live sport marketing team have to always deal with. By and large, the schedule is set. You know who's going to play, at what time, the location. Us, film production, right now there's a strike, right, in Hollywood. The writers on strike, the actors on strike, so like that impacts production overall. And you have to just be more fluid. So I'd say in this space, it's really helpful to be comfortable working in the gray space and being really flexible to change and not really letting it fluster you. And being okay with, building a strategy and a plan and having to literally shove it off the table and
Mhm.
start all over again, as we had to do at The Last Dance, given that, the pandemic happened.
Mhm.
We were supposed to release it in June of 2020. And, come March, the world was at a standstill and live sports wasn't happening. And the decision was made to release the film early.
Okay.
Well, we had a plan for June. We didn't have a plan for April. And so we just had to figure out, how to work from home really quickly and adjust a plan that made sense for the world that we were in that day and where people were. And what people needed at the time, like thinking about how to design things that made people feel hopeful or gave them something to talk about week over week, because it was hard for all of us. But that was something I'll never forget.
That's a great answer. And what's the question that you want to ask to my next guest?
Who is your next guest?
I'll tell you after the question.
Oh, like just like a random question?
Yeah,
Oh, I thought it was like going to be specific to the person. Okay.
Oh, no.
The next person. God, it's so hard. We don't know anything about the person.
It can be anything.
I say, well, yeah. Well, I was going to say, like, how do you balance like work and life? But maybe they don't have children. Maybe I'll ask about kind of what makes them tick. Like what makes them get up in the morning and like hungry for their job and like what they do every day. Like what kind of gets them motivated to get up and get fired up for work.
Okay, his name is Maximino Leon. He was a professional baseball player. He played, I think, in the 60s with Atlanta Braves. He's actually 73 years old. So it's going to be a good question for him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So for those people that are listening, we hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you learn some marketing lessons with Patricia here. Patricia, something else that you want to add before we say goodbye?
No, just thank you so much and good luck.
All right. Please don't forget to share this episode in your Instagram stories. You can find me at Luis Carlos Estrada and the number 2. Patricia, where do you want to send people to follow you? LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever.
Oh, yeah. LinkedIn would be great. LinkedIn at Patricia Yanez. You can find me there.
All right. So I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.